righty, folks. Hey, thank you so much for hanging in there. I'm back to the KCAA radio show, The Real Men of Real Estate. And I'm Patrick Franz, the Note Mentor. I'm your host. I'm back with Bill Bymel, my amazing guest, president of First Lien Capital, author of the book Win-Win Revolution. Folks, before I get started here, go to Amazon, get you a copy of the Win-Win Revolution, and understand how beautiful note investing can be when you make it a win for you, the investor, and a win for the borrower, and how great it can be. So, Bill, we were just talking about the forbearance programs and why it was a great thing, but why it may end up biting some folks. And there's going to be a lot of non-performing note inventory hitting the market, hitting the secondary market from large banks and large funds now that these moratoriums have been lifted and people now are moving forward doing business as usual. It's going to create a wonderful opportunity for folks like us that are in the business, or for folks that want to get into the business. If you want to get into note investing, go to the noteinvestoruniversity.com and sign up there to learn all about how you can do this. But Bill, let's give folks the current state of the market. Right? What's happening? The real estate market still seems to just be crazy on fire. I know people expected a crash a year or two ago, and they're going, when is this crash coming, or is it never coming? Elaborate on this a little bit for me, would you?
Right. No, and look, there was a crash brewing when we shut down the American economy in March of 2020. And what happened is it's very simple. The U.S. Congress passed the CARES Act, and the federal government, us as the taxpayers, printed $3 trillion of stimulus and injected our economy with that money. Now, much of it, a lot of it went to a good cause. A lot of people that, especially like restaurant owners, that were, any kind of service businesses. But, what the end result, as we're seeing it in the real estate market, is that I've got, just as a case example, I get offers from guys like, JJ's Automotive, and he's got $200,000 in his checking account, and he wants to buy an investment piece of real estate. So that's kind of a one example of what the cash has done to all segments. And we're seeing inflation across the board, but certainly in the area of residential real estate, the crash never happened. Instead, we revalued what it means to have your home, because now most of us work in our homes as well as live. And so the market has been on fire, ridiculously on fire. Yeah. With all the cash out there, with low interest rates, with corporations coming in and buying real estate to rent it out. It has been it's gotten to the point where you cannot buy a first-time home buyer house anywhere in America for under $300,000. And that might work at 4% interest rates, but we know interest rates are heading up. And we know that won't work at 6% interest rates.
Yes, absolutely. So there's a couple of different things coming, and I think it's all going to come into play in one fell swoop. One is that the interest rates will rise. That will be one thing that's going to make it tough. The market, in which has been lacking physical pieces of real estate for the past 3 years, is going to get flooded with REOs. In my opinion, right? The banks and the funds that finally foreclose on people are now going to have these houses that should have been on the real estate market 3 years ago. And it's just been missing inventory, and that's going to go. I know building is back up, so people are building when they can get a hold of lumber.
Right.
But so all these things come into play. And I think a lot of folks that understand real estate but don't understand notes is that, yes, folks, there has been millions and millions of homes here in America that people have been sort of squatting in, if you would, for the past 3 years. They're maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years behind on their mortgage payments, but no banks and no funds have been able to foreclose and evict. And so these people are just riding free as long as they can until now, when the movement starts to happen and people will start getting foreclosed on, and these will be available houses that hit the market by the millions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Patrick. And there's two aspects to that. One, just to give you some background, on any given year, on the best year in history, which was the lowest in default rates pre-COVID of like 2.8% or something, there was 300 billion of debt that went through the foreclosure process, or some portion of it. And on any given year, you're talking about 700,000 to 1 million units. That's on a good year. So on a year when there's higher defaults, you could be talking well over 1 million units. And what you're pointing to is that inventory has not been coming. So that will all of a sudden come back. And the other point you made, which was new construction, I have been sent a graph from the Federal Reserve. If you Google new housing starts, total unit new housing starts at the Federal Reserve, there's a graph that shows that we are currently have combined between single family and multifamily 1.6 million housing units under construction. This is the largest number of housing units under construction at any time since June of 1973, before I was born.
Wow.
Actually. So it gives you an idea that all of those things are the headwinds that you alluded to earlier, that everyone should be aware of. You know, I've got a 29-year-old son, and I've told him he's dying to buy, he just got married, dying to buy his first house in Southern California. And, you know, unfortunately, a first-time house in Southern California is more like $1 million. And I tell him, please just be patient, because the market will restabilize. It has to.
You know, we sometimes talk about too folks that missed their window in, say, 2005, prior to the market crashing then, when so many, people's houses had doubled, tripled in value.
Right.
People basically were wealthy on paper,
right,
because of their real estate, but not a lot of people know how to leverage that properly, right? And get a hold of that money and make it tangible so that maybe you can invest in more assets and build yourself more wealth over time. And I think maybe a lot of people may end up in that same boat this time, where it is, if folks believe there's a market crash coming and you're sitting on $300,000 of artificial unicorn money on paper, get that equity line while the interest rates are low, sell the house and rent a nice house for a while and be patient, or whatever it may be. But it's crazy to know, man, that in 2005 and 2006, after that crash started to happen, then people started to chase that market downwards. But when the market's crashing downwards, the buyers disappear. And so the buyers aren't buying. I'm not buying right now. The market's crashing. So then you're going to sell your house and you're chasing the market down as it drops and watching that equity that looked fancy on paper. Boy, I got 300 grand in equity. Now I have 40 grand in equity. Now I have none. Now I'm upside down, and it all just disappeared. So I've been telling people, get access to your money, make it tangible, and get that equity out of there. A paid off home is great, but becoming wealthy is even greater.
I agree 100%. And I think it's very good foresight for what's to come. Look, no one can time the market perfectly. And it is true that some of the greatest gains always happen right at the very end. So, I thought I was brilliant when I sold out of all of my Florida real estate in the January, February, and March of 2020. Right before COVID hits, I thought I was like, oh, the world's going to go to heck. I'm so glad I'm liquid. And look at me now. I left millions of dollars probably on the table. Maybe not millions, but $1 million at least on the table amongst all of the various investment properties in my home that I sold in Florida in early 2020. So you never can time it correct, but what you can say for sure is that a real estate market that's increased at 20% or 15% per year is not healthy for the real estate market. It's not sustainable, and it will most likely lead to a reversal in the other direction. So if you have the ability, and the problem is most people don't have the mobility issue. You can't sell because there's no affordability to go buy something else. And so it is exactly what happens at the end of a bubble. So for those that can, I highly recommend exactly what you said, Patrick. grab some access with a low interest, long-term debt. Interest rates will only be going up, or sell out that real estate and be ready to take advantage on the backside.
And here's what's fair, Bill. I think this is fair for us to admit.
Yeah.
Most regular folks out there that have created some paper wealth through owning a house and watching it appreciate in value big time over the last 10 years. I mean, crazy, right?
Right.
People that have had IRAs and 401ks, and they're planning to use those for retirement once they're 65 or however old. And I think that it can be true that most folks just don't know what to do with the money safely to grow their wealth. And that's why folks leave it setting there as equity, or they leave it in their mutual fund that's earning them a mean 1.5 or 2%. But they're leaving that money there because it's there and they know they won't lose it. And so folks, if you were going to, this is no investment advice. I'm just chapping it up here. But if you'd pulled money out of your retirement account to go gamble it on red or black at the casino, you're crazy. If you pulled 300 grand in equity out of your house so you could go play poker, a professional poker player, you're crazy. But if you know about node investing, if you know how you can put money to work at a very nice, healthy, annualized yield in a somewhat safe, or shall we say backed position, because the investment is backed by physical real estate that's usually worth more than what you invested. And again, making win-win revolution happen, win-wins for people in helping yourself as an investor and helping the borrower. But man, I got to tell you, getting access to your money, making it tangible, if you know what to invest it in, is one of the smartest things you can do while you still have it. If it disappears like it did in 07, you say bye-bye equity. Like my partner, he chased it down, Bill. He lost about 400 grand by being a little greedy and saying, no, let me wait a little longer. When my real estate's finally worth $1 million, I think he was at about 850 grand. When it finally reaches $1 million, I'm going to sell. And boy, when it went up to about 900 grand, the next month it started drop. And he chased it down and ended up doing a short sale, as a matter of fact, with the bank, and had to give it up. But
so many stories like that.
So many stories, folks. And we're going to be right back after this commercial break. And what we're going to do is come back with Bill Bymel, my guest, and we're going to close out the show. But guys, don't go anywhere. We're going to talk a little bit about the opportunity and why you might want to become a node investor right after this commercial break. Don't go anywhere.